Mali, a country with one of Africa's most famous civilizations, the Timbuktu civilization has over the last decade been in the news for all the wrong reasons. Most recently, the country has been hit by a wave of anti-government demonstrations, with protesters demanding that the president resigns.
We have planned to take the power, and we are staying here until he resigns. That today is the last day of presidency of President Ibrahim Boubacar Keita.
In a bid to calm the situation, the Malian president has extended an olive branch to the opposition.
Avec toutes les forces vives de la nation.
I will continue to favor dialogue with all the active forces of the nation for the establishment of a national unity government.
Hello, I am Sheila Nelima.
And I am Mubarak Kenya.
Welcome to this week's edition of Africa Today, which will look into the unfolding political crisis in Mali and efforts by regional countries to mediate.
In our program, we shall also focus on Mozambique, which has recently seen an upsurge in terrorist attacks. We're asking what's behind terrorist attacks in this grassroots Southern African state.
We shall also bring you a variety of news items from across Africa and, of course, your social media comments. So stay tuned.
Mali political crisis. Over the past few weeks, Mali has seen mass demonstrations calling for the resignation of President Ibrahim Boubacar Keita, who has struggled to stem rising takfiri terrorist attacks and inter-communal violence in northern and central parts of the country. Political tensions have been rising across this West African country since a disputed legislative election in March. Some of the results were later overturned by the country's constitutional court in a decision that was perceived to benefit Keita's party, sparking protests in different cities. Protests have not subsided even after President Keita dissolved the constitutional court and appointed 3 new judges.
J'ai donc décidé d'abroger les décrets de nomination des membres restants de la Cour constitutionnelle et d'aller vers la mise en œuvre des recommandations issues de la mission de la CEDEAO.
West African leaders, under the auspices of the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, have attempted to resolve the political crisis in Mali.
ECOWAS leaders meeting in Mali's capital, Bamako, asked the country's parliamentarians whose election is disputed to resign.
Nous avons demandé instamment la démission immédiate des 31 députés dont l'élection est contestée, y compris le président du Parlement. La majorité présidentielle devra mettre tout en œuvre pour obtenir cette démission qui ouvrira la voie à des élections partielles.
The Malian opposition has rejected the proposal put forward by ECOWAS to resolve the country's crisis. To discuss the situation in Mali now, we are joined by African Affairs analyst Julius Mbaluto. Thanks a lot for your time. Now, our first question, is the sudden uprising by the masses in Mali surprising?
Well, I don't think it's surprising because Mali has been facing political instability for some time. Right now, we have, for example, the war that has been going on, and also the corruption that has been going on. Also, people, Malian people observing all that going on. And I think the corruption and also mismanagement of election has been the key drive to the current crisis. With this June 5 movement led by Mahmoud Deko, I think their key focus was mostly to do with the election constitutional court.
Julius Mbaluto, African Affairs analyst. Stay tuned for more.
ECOWAS has proposed a new unity government to end the political rift between President Keita and opposition groups. Senegalese President Macky Sall expounds here on the mission of ECOWAS leaders in Bamako.
Nous sommes venus en tant que chef d'État de la CEDEAO voir le président Ibrahim Boubacar Keita, voir également les partis concernés pour apporter vraiment la paix, le salut et faire en sorte que le Mali reprenne vraiment le travail pour la stabilité du pays, mais aussi de toute la sous-région.
However, contrary to the demands by the opposition, ECOWAS mediators did not bring the resignation of President Keita to the table.
Shogwell Maiga, one of the leaders of the opposition June 5 movement, has expressed the movement's rejection of the approach taken by ECOWAS and insisted that President Keita must resign.
We told ECOWAS that we would not want the Malian people to feel that ECOWAS has the sole objective of keeping a president in power against the will of his people. ECOWAS must not be an instrument for protecting heads of state. It must be an instrument at the service of the interests of the people. That is what we told them.
Now, Mr. Mbaluto, what is your take on the ECOWAS mediation efforts? Are they likely to succeed?
Well, I quite like the idea that ECOWAS has been a force to reckon with, especially in West African countries. In the past, we saw them intervening militarily to stop attempted coups. And when you see the intervention of ECOWAS, the West African bloc, definitely you see is Africa solving its own problems and different nations uniting to ensure there is peace within Africa. And that's really a wonderful thing to see happening.
Amid ECOWAS mediation efforts, there appears to be disagreements within the opposition ranks in Mali over the fate of President Keita. Mahmoud Dicko, the influential Muslim leader seen as the driving force behind Mali's protest movement, has said the country's political crisis could be resolved without the president stepping down. His stance is more moderate than that of other opposition leaders. Dicko, however, insists that he will continue to struggle for justice.
I really wanted to say it very sincerely, and I said it and I will say it again. We are a people that stand. We are not a submissive or resigned people. I would rather die a martyr's death than a traitor's death.
The Malian Prime Minister late July reached out to the opposition and held talks with Mahmoud Dicko. He urged the opposition to assist in resolving the situation.
J'aimerais dire ici, et en cela, chacun des membres du gouvernement me rejoint en cela, j'aimerais dire qu'ils sont attendus et même fortement désirés dans ce prochain attelage gouvernemental qui doit être mis en place incessamment.
How can the government and the opposition reach an amicable solution to the current crisis?
We have a situation whereby they are not going to give up until the president resigns, in which case, for the sake of the country, it would be nice for the president to realize, since he has been in power since 2013, those are many years to go, be in power. And if the citizens have seen his leadership wanting, why not sacrifice for the sake of the country, resign? And then if he resigns, I foresee a situation whereby we may have another election, hoping if it's managed properly with a lot of independence and objectivity, then the country may rescue itself from imminent problems which of course are attached to any political instability.
The political crisis in Mali is seen as a dangerous development for the entire Sahel region, which is facing threats from numerous terrorist and separatist groups. The country's political turmoil also comes as the COVID-19 pandemic continues to ravage the region.
The special representative of the UN Secretary General for Mali, Mohamed Saleh Al-Nadif, in an address to the UN Security Council, said Mali is not an exception to the pandemic, but added that he is optimistic on the resilience of Malian people.
We face many challenges, including the safety and well-being of the whole UN family in Mali, but also have real hopes through the capacity of resilience of the Malian people.
Now, how will the current crisis impact on combating COVID-19 pandemic and the fragile security situation in northern Mali?
War comes and displaces people, which means even government was to say stay at home, to say be safe. There's no home to stay when there's war. People are on the move, and because of fleeing from war, it's not nice. And even this protest as well, I don't think it's really good for the country. It's time like this. So the impact of the protests in the future will be felt widely, because it's not just coming as a political, as an experience of political instability alone.
And now in this segment of our program, my colleague Sheila Nelima is ready to present you with news and events from across Africa. What do you have today, Sheila?
Thank you, Henia. Today we venture into the environment, tourism and development all around the continent. Now question, how do we save the ecosystem? We feast on the fish, but not just any fish. The gleaming carps have multiplied in the Granville Lake in South Africa. This is said to be a threat to the ecosystem. The park managers have resorted to donating the fish to local communities. 250 people are fed per day, a relief during these COVID times. Now, still on South Africa, the government has allocated over $250 million to upgrade informal settlements. This is to improve the living conditions and standards of households in the provinces and metro municipalities. Now, on to tourism. The champion, Eliud Kipchoge, from the home of champions, Kenya, took up the role as the country's new tourism ambassador. The Kenya Tourism Board appointed the world record holder as part of its strategy to popularize and market the country's tourism. Now into agricultural news. Namibian blueberries are headed to the global market. The project, spearheaded by Mashare Berries Limited and Cherries Irrigation, is set to produce a total harvest of 150 tons on only 20 hectares of land. Harvest is ongoing until late October. Now to clean energy, a new off-grid solar project by ENGIE is set to be scaling up to provide electricity to around 80% of Ugandans. Payments will be in installments for years, helping families who are unable to afford immediate payment. Now, Gahaya Links and MasterCard Foundation partnered in a program called COVID-19 Recovery and Resilience. The program, done in Rwanda, provided 480,000 face masks produced by over 1,400 tailors, mostly women. The program was to help vulnerable artisan communities affected by the lockdown measures. Now we have come to the end of this part. Visit our social media pages for the latest news updates and our weekly program. Share your thoughts and comments on the program. Don't move, we will be right back.
Daesh in Mozambique.
Mozambique is being described as one of the most promising countries on the African continent in terms of liquefied natural gas exports. This South African country has more than 125 trillion cubic feet of natural gas reserves.
Current exploration and investment decisions have the potential to make Mozambique one of the world's 10 largest exporters of LNG.
However, Mozambicans have been unable to celebrate their newfound wealth due to increased terrorist attacks by insurgents affiliated to ISIS or Daesh takfiri terrorist group. The ISIS affiliate, known as Al-Shabaab, though it has no links with the Somali terrorist group of the same name, has been carrying out attacks in Cabo Delgado, which is rich in gas deposits, since October 2017. With hundreds dead from the attacks, residents of the region have seen little or no peace over the last few years, as one of them explains here.
They came out of nowhere and burnt my house. Now we live with nothing. We have nothing left. We live like this now.
Now, for more on the upsurge of terrorist attacks in Mozambique, we are joined by Eric Wahlberg, author and African affairs analyst. Welcome to the program, Mr. Wahlberg. What's the reason behind the increased attacks by ISIS-inspired terrorist groups in Mozambique's oil-rich Cabo Delgado province?
Recently, there has been an increase in their activity. Of course, ISIS is being pushed away out of Syria and Iraq, but the elements are still there, and they look for other weak areas where they can move in and influence local Muslim population. And that is the other element in Mozambique. It was the name Mozambique is Musa ibn Bik was a great Muslim merchant in the 16th century before the Portuguese invaded and started to Christianize forcibly the local Muslim population. So Mozambique was quite a happy, sort of feudal, primitive, communist kind of society before the rise of imperialism. So that is the background.
According to the Armed Conflict Location and Event Data Project, the humanitarian situation in the gas-rich Cabo Delgado province of Mozambique has deteriorated rapidly in the first 6 months of 2020 due to insecurity and violence. As a result, at least 250,000 people are now estimated to be internally displaced in Cabo Delgado. Apart from violence, many are also being forced from their land to make way for gas exploration by fossil fuel giants Shell, Eni, ExxonMobil, Anadarko, Total, and others.
Essa área tem importância muito. Até nós aqui todos aqui confiamos nessa área para termos mashamba. Toda a comunidade de Senga, as mashamba deles estão aqui mesmo. Essa área aqui,
Western countries are deeply involved in oil and gas explorations in this northern Mozambique province. Has this in any way contributed to increased terrorist attacks?
If you want to look at what happened in Congo, there was Patrice Lumumba, the same process, a liberation movement. It was communist, socialist, and the U.S. government actively undermined that whole process in the 60s. And there was actually an independent Congo. The mineral-rich part of the Congo was taken over by mercenaries and was supported at that point more openly by companies. They were a bit more Western corporations were actively involved in that. They've been less so involved, although it's the same process of there is now liberation or a secessionist movement in the oil and resource-rich north of Mozambique.
ISIS terrorist group recently warned South Africa that it will open the fighting front within the country's borders should it get involved in Mozambique's Cabo Delgado province.
This threat came after government of Mozambique requested assistance from the Southern African Development Community member states in combating the growing insurgency in the country.
The problem of Mozambique is the problem of Zimbabwe, problem of Zambia, of Namibia, of Botswana, everywhere. And this is why. But the target reachable, we believe that we together are going to work hard to make sure that our region is peaceful.
South African Foreign Minister Naledi Pandor says her country is discussing with Mozambique on possible South African assistance for Mozambique's struggle against terrorists in Cabo Delgado.
Our governments are in discussion as to how we might lend support from our own resources as South Africa. At this point, we understand that Mozambique is making use of private security providers in order to fight this insurgent group.
Can South Africa assist neighboring Mozambique in maintaining security in Cabo Delgado and thus prevent the militarization of the gas-rich province by foreign powers?
Sure. South Africa, now that it's free of its apartheid legacy, is really, it's the main trading partner of Mozambique. And I'm sure that they are not actively involved in undermining the government, as they were under the apartheid system. Really, from the 70s on, Rhodesia and South Africa were the reason that Mozambique could not liberate itself from the Portuguese. So South Africa has a huge and negative legacy from its apartheid days. And I certainly hope that today it feels this need for some kind of atonement and to help in a positive way.
Eric Wahlberg, African Affairs Analyst.
Many oil-rich African countries, rich in natural resources, including minerals, oil, and gas, still suffer from extreme poverty due to many external and internal factors. Despite the violence that has come with Mozambique's discovery of massive gas reserves, many in this country are optimistic their lives will be transformed.
Thanks to this project we're about to take off, we'll have jobs. Because there are no jobs here, we're dependent on the sea. And with the start of the project, I think lots of young people will get jobs.
African countries rich in oil and gas are plagued with violence, corruption, and poverty. Will this be the fate of Mozambique?
Mozambique is actually considered a heavily indebted, poor country. It's the bottom of the weakest and the most devastated countries after its long civil war. And then when it finally is making peace with its opposition, this Renamo, it is doing it on a Western agenda, neoliberal agenda, with World Bank and IMF and US hovering over it. So what it's had to do to please the Western powers, and also because it's completely bankrupt after its long civil war, it has been just handing its public resources to private companies.
Welcome back to this segment. We are going to look into what you, our viewers, had for us this week. We had at Abi Geda stating, African problem by African solution, that's the way to go. We also had at Tendai Mbofana stating, impressed by Real Africa Today's refreshing new in-depth analysis of Africa affairs, especially exploring beyond limiting our lives merely to how the US or the West exploiting us. We have more to offer than that. Well done. I just hope you feature more African analysts. We also had at Tegese stating, I do not believe that USA is neutral in the Nile Dam talks. They want to give the Nile as a gift for Egypt because Egypt is silencing the Palestinian cause with Israel. We also had at Mafowad stating the Trump administration is considering cutting some aid to Ethiopia over a Nile River Dam dispute with Egypt. God, Nile for all. We also had Douglas Reggae stating, I don't understand why ordinary East Africans, civil society, and governments are not taking this right. Egypt and Sudan should know that we deserve the full sustainable use of these waters. We also had at Yeshum Desta stating, Egyptian propagandists, Egypt has a historical right to the Nile water. Egypt will not give up its share of the Nile. Also, Egyptian propagandists, Nile for all. Seriously, make up your minds. Is it Nile for all or not? Unless the all in the Nile for all is Egypt only. Now, thanks for all your comments. Please follow us and interact with us in our social media platforms. Keep the comments coming. Thanks for staying tuned.
On that note, we come to the end of this week's edition of Africa Today. Thanks a lot for tuning in.
We do welcome your comments and also suggestions on topics you would like to see covered here at Africa Today.
And we are all looking forward to a prosperous and peaceful Africa. Goodbye from me, Mubarak Kenya.
And from me, Sheila Nelima, and the entire team, it's goodbye and God bless.